Welcome to Podjunction Podcast, a show for podcasters using their podcast to grow their business. I'm Sadaf, and beside me is the Matt Edmondson.
The Matt Edmondson.
Yeah.
Wow, it's really fascinating because we live in Liverpool.
Yes, we do.
We do live in Liverpool, and in Liverpool, we like to. I say we.
No, we. It's not. No, Matt likes to.
I say we. People of Liverpool like to put the word "the" before pretty much everything. Mm-hmm. So there's a supermarket in the UK called Asda. In Liverpool, it's called the Asda. And it's just one of the things that we like to do. So when you say the Matt Edmondson, it's like, that's how I would probably be introduced. Hey, that's the Matt Edmondson there, lad. And so it's, do you remember when the movie Batman came out?
Which one?
The one that was filmed in Liverpool. Yeah. The recent one.
Yeah.
But it wasn't called Batman. It was
called The Batman.
Yeah. Which just pleased everybody in Liverpool. It's just like this big
that
thing.
That was good.
Yeah. The Batman! And then because they filmed it, a lot of it in Liverpool as well, I think it was all wonderfully done. Anyway, yes. I digress.
Yes, so anyway.
Matt Edmondson is sat next.
Yes.
Sat next to Sadaf. All right, La, come on, let's do it.
All right.
What are we doing today?
Not the Scouse accent. All right. So today we've got the fourth and final segment with John Roman. And if you've listened to any of the full-length episodes, you'll know that I like to ask our guests to let us know within 60 seconds why they think podcasting is a great tool for business growth. So I asked John the same question, and he took a bit longer than 60 seconds, but it was all really good, valuable.
I'm not surprised at all in any way.
Yeah. So I thought we would make a segment out of it, and for you guys to hear his thoughts on it as well.
So that's what we've got coming up.
That's what we've got.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Has anyone ever answered that question in 60
yes.
seconds or less?
Yes.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Are they new podcasters when if they answer it in 60 seconds or less? I kind of feel like if you ask a seasoned podcaster, for an answer to that question, they're just going to go off on one because they're going to say something which will spark an idea, which will spark another idea. And before you know it, 4 hours have passed.
Well, Jared Krause.
Yeah.
He's coming up. And he did it in a couple words, actually.
Jared, what a legend.
And then he went on to say more, but yeah.
Yeah, okay, well, fair play. Well done for doing it in under 60 seconds. But John, I'm not surprised it took over 60 seconds at all. There's no hint of surprise on my face. I don't know if I'd be able to answer it in 60 seconds.
No, you can't. That's why I wouldn't ask you. Be like, Matt, in 10 words or less, tell me.
Yeah. Well, it's good to be known, I suppose. I don't know. How
just kidding?
Yeah, just kidding. This is Sadaf's little catchphrase, isn't it? You say something and then just follow it with "just kidding." Like, Matt, you were really rubbish. Just kidding.
Oh dear.
Brilliant. So we've got John Roman. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let's play the clip. Then Sadaf and I will be back after this to chat about John's more than 60-second conversation. So here we go.
Can you tell us why you think podcasting is a great marketing tool to grow one's business?
Sure. So I think it's an absolute for B2B. I think you could argue whether it is. You have to look at it in a completely different lens when you're talking about a direct-to-consumer brand. There's benefit, but I think the business has to have some maturity to it. And you have to be very strategic. As I said earlier, there's multiple ships in that port. On the B2B side, it's really a no-brainer, right? You're going to have, I'm going to struggle to keep this in 60 seconds, but the reality is just like consumer behavior has buying behavior has changed over time, so has, B2B purchase behavior, right? Before you used to take a phone call, have the demo, try to make a decision. Now it's almost a research piece, right? Like you're going to your community, whether it's LinkedIn or you're in a Slack group, or Reddit, or a Facebook group, there's hundreds of, and you're asking the community and you're listening to the community on on the right solution, whether it's an email provider or an agency. Like you're really listening for the right answer. And that's changed so much, right? Before it was you got the email and that's how you decided to meet with someone. So because of that, there's an opportunity where B2B leaders can be in the space as thought leaders, providing value, talking about the topics that everyone wants to talk about and know about anyway. And that way Jimmy is the example. Jimmy does this great job providing free value and best practices when it comes to email. And all of a sudden, you're mad at Klaviyo or you're looking for a new email provider and Jimmy comes to mind. Well, maybe SendLane's an option. I always see Jimmy's posts. Jimmy's interacting with my posts. So, that's the new way of selling, right? It's all about the non-overly aggressive traditional sales process and more just relationship building. And that's done through content, whether it's traditional posting or it's video and podcasts. And I think, the traditional model that a lot of B2B companies do where it's host and guest, it's great for networking, right? You're going to build your network, and eventually just, organically people you talk to and guests and then friends of guests are going to have a need and you're the first person they think to go to, right? And I think that's where it's of value. Content is key. Content is king. And podcast piece checks that content box, but it also checks the building your network box.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was way longer than a minute. I apologize.
That's totally okay. That was a lot of good stuff that you said there. So it really doesn't matter at all. But you're right. It is very much a softer sell. And you're warming up leads without even realizing it. And the leads are getting warmed up without even realizing it in some sense, isn't it? Yeah,
it's just but it's people want community, right? And that checks the community box.
Absolutely. If that got you curious and you want to catch the full episode, be sure to subscribe to the show. We've got plenty more great conversations coming up.
Very good. Oh, let me get my microphone in the right place. There we go. I was just putting my notes on the table. Love that, but definitely more than 60 seconds. But you're right. I think he needed more than 60 seconds to explain his thinking. And the thing I liked about what John said was actually stuff that's not really been said too much before. This new way of selling that is sort of becoming more and more prevalent in the marketplace. It's much more of a medium to long-term approach.
Yeah.
And so some of the other stuff you may have to do short-term, but medium to long-term podcasting seems to be a great tool for this new way of selling. More so than any other tool I've come across, I think.
Yeah.
And so I like that phrase, podcasting, the new way of selling. I'm going to steal that. Thanks, John. But because I think it is. I think it's all integrated in this new part. And I think that works, and I think that makes sense. The ability to put content out there, which we talked about last week, be it in thought leadership. Again, John Roman Part 3. Check it out if you haven't done so already. And we talked about that last week. But the ability to put content out there so that when people are searching and looking, they come across that content.
Yeah.
What do HubSpot call this? They call it inbound marketing, don't they?
Sure.
Yeah. So this is inbound marketing, whereby you understand that there are different people are at different phases of the buyer's cycle, from problem aware to solution aware to non-problem aware to not solution. Do you know what I mean? There's this sort of matrix, isn't there?
Yeah.
And so, traditionally we did. And we still do cold outreach, which is a bit like, standing on the street with a megaphone.
Sandwich board.
Yeah, just like, this is who I am, this is where I am, hoping that it makes sense for somebody. But inbound is capturing that traffic who are on that buyer's journey somewhere,
Yeah.
giving them some kind of content to connect with you so that they begin to know, like, and trust you. And then at some point when they are ready to buy, you're the person that's sort of top of mind. And he used obviously the example of Jimmy with his email company.
Yeah. He said that in the context of thought leadership, didn't he? Like, so they're providing value and talking about the stuff that people are already wanting to know about.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Right. So we need to, like in podcasting, we talk about how do you, I mean, we're so niche. If you think about Podjunction, this is not a podcast about how to do a podcast, because there's plenty of podcasts about podcasting, you know, about which microphone you should use, about which cameras and all the tech gear and stuff that, well, actually I care about, but I don't care about doing a podcast about, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
There's plenty of people doing that. So we focused in on a niche. It's like, well, no, let's look at this. How do we create content for people who are podcasting to build their business? That's the reason that they're doing it. They want to build a business. So how do we create content around that?
Yeah.
Well, that's a bit more interesting, isn't it? And it's a bit more niche. It's a bit more around an actual need. So yes, if you want to know how to, you know, which camera to use, just, you know, there'll be podcasts out there. Or go look at Think Media. You know, yeah, YouTube is great. But it was much less competitive in this space.
Yeah.
And actually, this is much more what I want to talk about. The cameras and stuff is not. I've got a nice camera, but once I've got the camera, I don't need to go think about it again for another 2 years, right? But the techniques and strategies about this new way of selling, I think, are a constant evolution, and that's why it's nice sort of focusing on that content.
Yeah, I agree.
Why did we start talking about that? I can't remember.
I don't know.
No, I have no idea. I've lost my train of thought. Anyway, what did you think to what John was saying?
I thought it was great. Yeah.
Just clear the throat.
Yeah,
first.
sorry. So he said using podcasts for B2B, no brainer.
Yeah.
Direct business growth.
Yeah.
B2C though, more strategic.
Yep.
The approach needs to be far more strategic.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. I mean, it makes sense.
Yes.
Makes sense, doesn't it? I like that.
Why?
Why to which one?
Why do you say you like that? Why? Expand a little bit more.
Well, I like it because it makes sense. Like he's hit the nail on the head with that. You don't really, there's not a lot of guesswork. You don't have to think too hard about it. If you're in B2B, use the podcast. What did he say? Content is king. And in the last one, he said building an audience is key.
Yeah.
So, you know.
He used the word community a lot.
Yeah, I used community in this one, didn't he? Yeah. So again, using your podcast to create content, create a community, and bish bash bosh.
Love that. Bish, whenever you can use the word bish bash bosh,
you do it.
Do it, right? Or not the word, the phrase, the 3 words. So this new way of selling, John talks about, is based on relationship, based on community.
Yeah.
Based on the idea that a lot of people are in the research phase, thinking again about the buyer's journey, you know, where people are at. I think it's like out of 100 people, 3% might be ready to buy.
Yeah.
And that's where we direct all our marketing, all our attention. It's like, let's go find those 3 people who are ready to buy. That's the most competitive space. 97% of the people aren't ready to buy, but they're going to be ready to buy at some point. That's where the education comes in, understanding the buyer's journey.
Yeah.
That's where relationship is built. That's where community is made. And I liked how John talked about people are researching. And if you understand that, you can connect with people in that research space. And so when they are ready to buy, you've got them. And I think where podcasting works, and as John was talking, I kind of clicked in my head, where podcasting works is it helps people in that phase, in that sort of phase of the buyer's journey where they're researching, they're wanting to know more. But the reason podcasting works is because it mixes that research with entertainment.
Yeah.
Right? So you have a blog post. So, you know, let's go back to my example of which camera should I use for my video podcast. You can go, there's a million blog posts, right, out there telling you to go get whatever camera, the Sony ZV-E10 or the Canon, whatever camera. And so you can read that and it's facts and it's information. But actually, when you watch something on YouTube or when you listen to a podcast, that facts and information is then merged with entertainment.
Yeah.
Right? So I prefer to watch a video than read a blog post.
Yeah.
So if I was going to look for a new camera, I'd go onto YouTube because I would want to see the video rather than read a blog post. It's quicker to read the blog post, but I prefer the video. There's a lot more information it gives me as they're holding it in their hands and all that sort of subconscious information. But if I'm honest with you, it's an entertainment thing. And it keeps me entertained much more. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
And I think podcasting is a great way to bring an entertainment around that thought leadership that hopefully keeps people coming back.
Yeah.
You following what I'm saying?
I am. I was actually thinking when you were talking about blogs that we used to do that before podcasting, try and use the blog post to kind of give as much information to people on their buying journey as possible so that they would eventually go to buy now button. But now, as you say, the podcast uses a lot more of your senses, doesn't it? And so you're able to engage with it more than you would with a blog post. Maybe people do prefer to read. There's always that. But I don't know, are blog posts as effective as they were?
I think so. I think yes. I just think there's a lot of them, and it's fiercely competitive. Whereas the podcasting and YouTube space is maybe not as competitive. Yeah, a lot more involved. Yeah, but I think here's the other thing you need to think about. It's like if we produce this as a video, right? So a video podcast. That's how we do Podjunction. It's in fact how we do all our podcasts. Yeah. We don't have one audio only podcast. Although I'm thinking of starting an audio only podcast. But that's another story for another day.
September.
Yeah, if you don't know, August is my sabbatical month, so nothing happens in August. I'm out. But September, I come back with so many good ideas. Everything's
ideas. Just kidding. Some good ideas.
Well, feel there's some issues there we might need to resolve. I think we might have to go have a conversation about a few things. So yeah, just shout the word ideas. Awesome. So what were we talking about before?
In September, you come back with great ideas.
Yeah, I can't remember what my good ideas were.
Audio.
Oh, I say yeah. So here's the thing, right? Here's the process. I can take an audio podcast and I can separate out. Sorry, I can take a video podcast. Yeah. So the way it works with Podjunction, we record this as a video. We extract the audio, which is an absolute piece of cake. That audio becomes the audio podcast. That's what you see on Apple, Spotify, and all the places you can get your podcast from, right? So I've got the video podcast, but from that same asset, I've also got the audio podcast. From that audio, I can take the transcript. From the transcript, I can then create a blog post around that content, right? So now I've got the video, I've got the podcast, and I've got the blog post. Yeah. From that transcript and from the video, I can take clips for short form video content or quotes or whatever for social media. So from my one piece of media, from this one single video recording, we output everything else. Yeah, that's right. Whereas if I just focus purely on the blog post, I've missed the video and the audio. I can still output everything else beyond that, but I've missed it. And so I like to write. I do like to sit down and write, but for this form of content, this type of content where it's educational, we're trying to share knowledge, I much prefer just sitting down and chatting in front of a video with people and recording it. It's rather than just sitting down and going, right, here's 5 steps to do your podcast well. Step number one, do you know what I mean? Yeah, I quickly run out of ideas, whereas with this conversation, what episode are we on now? Episode what, 34? 34. We're on 34. And we're just still scratching the surface. Yeah. You know, and we're still going strong. And so, but then again, we've mixed the entertainment aspect into it, which is probably why I find it a bit more fun. Ideas. Because that would have never happened in a blog post. No, it wouldn't. Sadaf types in big caps letters, ideas, brackets, some are good, not all of them. Close brackets. In other words, don't get ahead of yourself. Edmo. Don't think of yourself more highly than you ought to. Let's bring you back down to earth. But that never would have happened with a blog post.
No.
At least I find it hard to see how that would have happened. So I guess I'm hoping that the content is entertaining for people that consume it.
Yeah.
But it's entertaining for me to create it. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Especially
Sure
when you're
does.
off on one. Which you're always off on one, to be fair. So it's always going to be entertaining.
Oh, dear. Yeah.
So, yeah, that's my 2 pence. Anything else you want to throw in on this?
See my notes. A bit closer.
The smallest handwriting in the world.
I know.
Can you actually read that?
Yeah.
Or is it getting more and more of a struggle?
Yeah. Getting old. No, I think we've covered it. Building relationships through content. That was the community side of things, wasn't it?
Yeah. And again, that can't be underestimated.
No.
The community aspect of it. So I mentioned, I think, in the last episode about Shaper, the woodworking tool. And actually, one of the things that they've done really well is built community through their content. So when they do a live stream, they'll do giveaways. They get people commenting and asking questions. They answer those questions. That ability to create that engagement with the community through live streams. And I've seen people like Amy Porterfield and people like that do this quite well, where you can send in your questions, or who's the other guy? John Lee Dumas. And you can do like a call, like I don't know how they do it, maybe with a Google number, you know, and you call and you leave a voicemail and they'll bring that into and so you're building community and you're bringing community content in there, which I think is super, super helpful.
Yeah.
And I think those kind of things work really well. One of the things that we're starting to trial, and I have no feedback because I've only done one, I just want to point that out, is when we have a guest on the show that I'm hosting, I say to the guest, normally towards the end, something along the lines of, listen, we have this thing called question format, which I think, will need to be named at some point properly. But we have this thing called question format. You're going to give me a question. I say this to the guest. So the guest is going to give me a question, but I don't answer it on the podcast. I then take that snippet of that question and I record a video in vertical format answering that, right?
Yeah.
So Joe Davis, the only one that we've done, Joe Davis a few weeks ago asked me who was going to win the Euros, right? Now, this was at the start of the Euros. I had no idea, but I needed to record the answer before the start of the Euros. Yeah. And so we just took that snippet, who's going to win the Euros, and then I gave my answer. So that's building community into my content, into the social media aspect. So people are starting to get used to the idea that they can submit their questions. And so the next evolution of this is I'm asking guests for questions, is to say to the community, if you've got a question, just send me a video with your question. Obviously, your question's got to be quick because short form video. We've only got a few minutes and I like to talk, as you know. So keep your question. So that'll be the next evolution of that. And just engaging community and building that community with content. So, yes. Went off on one there. Sorry, another good idea.
Yeah, so we actually did that one for Joe because it was a bit time critical.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the others are coming if you're looking out for them.
Yeah, the others are coming. The question, it's interesting when you say to the guest, ask me a question, and that it's like a cold sweat comes onto their face. I do pre-warn them, right? Yeah. I do say to them before we hit the record button, I want you to know this is a new slot in the show. This is what I'm asking. This is why I'm asking this. Yeah. So have a quick think now about the question. You might want to start doing this in the pre-call because it's like they're a rabbit caught in headlights. They kind of go, I don't know, what should my question be? And so maybe get them to write it down. So okay. Write it down, your question now. So when it comes to it, you know what's going on. But everyone loves it, and some people, they ask really interesting questions, normally around e-commerce, because we've only done this on the e-commerce podcast. So although it'd be interesting to see what people come up with on Push, actually. Yeah. Just thinking that through. But yes, that's a top tip.
So about community, I actually think it's really hard to build one. I think it takes a lot of effort, and you have to be really, what's the word I'm looking for? You need to really think it through and be determined to see it through as well. And I think that's, and I don't think it comes easily. You have to be quite strategic about it. And what works, like one of the things John pointed out now about, where, like what channel, what platform you plan to do that on. Is it Slack? Is it Reddit? Is it LinkedIn? Whatever. And then sticking to it.
Yeah, being consistent in that arena.
Yeah.
Because you're right. I mean, we've tried to build communities of Facebook groups, Instagram. We've tried all kinds of things, tried and failed in many ways. And it's not actually that straightforward. And people that come onto YouTube and say, I'll just do these 3 things and you have 10,000 followers, you just want to punch them in the face because, in a good Christian way, obviously. Because it's just, you're like, for some people, it is just really easy. They just put it on and all of a sudden they've got 10,000 downloads and it just happens to have worked for them.
Yeah.
But I think for the majority of us, we've got to graft at it and we've got to build that community and we have to be intentional. Speaking to Nick Ratcliffe yesterday, we were recording for the e-commerce podcast. So Nick is an e-commerce entrepreneur. He was a doctor, quit medical practice to do an online business where he sort of does poster design. He does graphic design, doesn't he? And people buy his posters. So very much a passion project. But one of the things that's worked well for him is he's figured out how to build the community on Instagram.
Yeah.
He was talking a lot about that actually, and how Instagram drives more traffic to his website and sales than his email marketing does, which leads me to think his email marketing's broken, which I did say to him. Yeah. But I think that he was super intentional about that, and it's taken him 2, 3, 4 years to build that audience and that community up. And just having something interesting and just posting something, understanding who your niche are, all those things are super important. But you're right, find where they are and just keep hitting that place where they're at to build that community, and just be active in it.
Just something you said, I don't know if we've got a time for this, so you might need to keep it to like 10 words when you respond. Just kidding.
Just kidding.
I forgot. What was I going to say?
I have no idea.
Yes, I know what I was going to say. So for something like B2B, actually, no, scrap that. But like let's just go with what you were saying about Nick using Instagram to drive traffic to his website.
Yeah.
And it's obviously worked. What about something like podcasting? So if you've got a podcast and you're posting on Instagram, is that really effective as, or would something like email marketing be better?
Well, that's a really deep question.
Because it's more of a service, or, well, it depends what it is, what you do, I suppose. But
yeah, I think it does. And I think if you're hosting a podcast and you're wanting to use Instagram, for example, to grow your podcast, I think that makes sense. And I think you can find, especially if you're in a niche market, you'll find eventually keep posting stuff out there and you'll do okay. You might have to put some money behind it to get the initial traction. So I think that can work. I think if you've already got an Instagram following, does it make sense to do a podcast? So would it make sense for Nick to do a podcast? I think that's a slightly different question. I think he and I actually had a conversation about what might make a bit more sense for him. So he's in the creative space. He does these posters. His niche is the Christian market. So there's many ways he could approach this. He could do like a video YouTube channel quite easily, I think. Like come draw with me, like a live stream type thing. Come design with me and build a community around that. He could definitely do a podcast around the creative process, about, being a medical doctor and following your dreams. I mean, he's got a really interesting story, and he could do something around that, which would build that community. I think it would be very hard to do a audio podcast around something that's visual.
Yeah.
And his stuff is very visual, so I think he'd have to do the video podcast side of things, unless he did an audio podcast around something that was connected with it. So he could do something like a daily devotional podcast.
Yeah.
To appeal to the Christian listener.
Yeah.
Growing that audience who will ultimately, out of that audience comes his customers, if that makes sense.
No, that's good.
He could do something like that. I think given that he is just him and his wife and teenagers doing this thing at the moment, I think it's very much a case of focus on the one channel. For him, I think that's Instagram, and doing short form video, I think would be really good.
Yeah. And I guess like what you just said, that it is very visual, Instagram would work well for that. That makes sense too.
Yeah, it would. Cool. And, you know, that kind of Etsy market, I think makes a lot of sense for him. So, yeah, it's not to say he shouldn't do a podcast, but I think at the moment with the resources the way they are, and given that he's already doing okay on Instagram, I'd probably put more of my eggs in that basket. To come back to your question, though, should he grow his email list? Yeah. Absolutely. And I think, and this is true for podcast or podcasting, fundamentally, we're putting content out there. We own the content, but if Apple decides for whatever reason to kick us off their platform, we've got a bit of a problem, right? And the same with Nick. You know, he's grown his Instagram following. He's doing well on Instagram. But as soon as Instagram goes, we're just not showing content anymore. For whatever reason, then he's just out of the game in so many ways. And so the best, highest value thing you can build out, you know, for your business is your email list. And I think this is true for podcasters. We should even probably do an episode on email list growth for podcasters and get someone to come talk to us about that, because I think it's super, super important. So it's not just about, I've had 10,000 downloads this month. One of the success metrics, and we've talked about this actually, how do we grow our email list? And encouraging people to subscribe, because that data, you actually own that data. Everything else, Meta owns it, Instagram owns it, you know, Apple own the mechanism for playing podcasts. It could all go a bit wrong later down the line. And I think one of the lessons we've learned from e-commerce is if I can't get the sale of the product, I want to get their email address. And I think with podcasting, the primary purpose of whatever your primary purpose for doing the podcasting is, if you're doing it to build a network or whatever it is, fundamentally you've got to get the email addresses of people you want on the show and people listening to the show, because that's your audience. And I think you always mix good content like this type of stuff, but with a regular email newsletter as well. And staying in touch that way by email is super important. Super important. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
In 60, I didn't do it in 10 words though.
Or 60 seconds.
Or 60 seconds. Anyway.
No, that's good. Thank you.
Next week
we have Peter Murphy. So new guest.
Fantastic. New guest, Peter Murphy. What a legend. Oh, I love this. I'm looking forward to this. Peter's such a cool guy.
Yeah, he is.
But before we get into that, John, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. You are, as always, a legend, my friend. And I think it's been invaluable listening to it. And so I think we're putting up John's full interview.
That's coming out this week.
That's coming out this week, end of this week as well. So do check out the full interview with John. We've only picked out four. I say 3 or 4? 4, because we've had 4 episodes. But we've picked out 4 snippets that we've talked about. There is so much more in the full interview. So make sure you do listen to John's full interview. Do reach out to him, say hello. As podcasters, we all love to hear from people. So even if you don't want to buy anything, you don't need BattleBox or all that sort of stuff, just drop him a note and say, John, really appreciate what you did, man, on the Podjunction podcast. He'll appreciate it. So reach out to him. All his information will be in the show notes, obviously, and you can connect with John. But do listen to the full interview, because it's going to be epic. And then, of course, make sure you are subscribed and all of that sort of good stuff, because we've got Pete Murphy coming up next week, who's he's just fab. I love Pete. And so, anything else from you?
Nope.
That's it from me. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a fantastic week wherever you are in the world. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.
And that brings us to the end of today's episode at Podjunction. If you've enjoyed the insights from this episode and want to hear the full conversation with today's special guest, don't forget to visit podjunction.com, where you'll find more information about how you can join Podjunction cohort. Whether you listened while on the go or in a quiet moment, thank you for letting us be a part of your day. Remember, every episode is a chance to gain insights and to transform your business with podcasting. So keep on tuning in, keep on learning, and until next time, happy podcasting.